started all this overthinking. Oh, 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 oh. The more I swim, the more I'm sinking. Take me to a world of silver. No more heartbreaks, tears, painkillers. Take me somewhere unfamiliar. Bring me back to where we started out. Get me out of now. When forever finally ends, all the promises are broken. No more fight.
He shouted at her, and her eyes became wide, hearing upon the accusation he is throwing on her. Jungkook, what are you talking about? He left her shoulder with a jerk and pulled out his phone and showed her some pictures of her and Jake from the mall, where they both are looking very close. What will you say about this? Huh? And if you are going to say that these are fake, then let me tell you, I myself saw you with Jake with my own freaking eyes. She looked at the photos and then at him. Her eyes were filling with tears. Why are you silent now? Jungkook, I can explain. What will you explain? That you are behind my... A loud slap echoed in the room. His face turned other side with the force. He looked at her with his red eyes. This is what you think about me? She grabbed his collar. He looked at her hands on his collars and then into her eyes, which was shedding uncountable tears now. His heart clenched. Once he promised that he will never let those eyes shed tears, but now he is the reason of her tears. Your anger issues was one of the reasons why I left you. I never thought that you would point on my character just by believing on some mere photos. She left his collar only to grab it again. She brought her face closer to him, and his heart dropped at the closeness. She still has her effect on him. Both can hear each other's heavy breathing. We are also close right now. Tell me how much we are loving each other, showering each other with love. Her voice was cracking, clearly indicating that how much she is hurt, and his expression dropped. It hit him hard. What is she saying? He was too blinded by anger. She moved away from him and left his collar with a jerk, and he stumbled back. Leave it. I don't want to explain anything to anyone. Just then, they both heard a knock on the door. Ryan, open the door. Ryan, Jungkook. Both fixed themselves, and after looking last time at the mirror, she opened the door. What happened, Mom? Mrs. John frowned, looking at Ryan's dull face. Are you fine, dear? She asked while cupping her cheeks. Yes, Mom. Then why it is looking like you were crying? Ryan gulped, thinking of something to say. Mrs. John looked at Jungkook and he looked away. Did he say something to you? Maids were saying that he was dragging you. Is this a way to treat your wife, Jungkook? She asked, looking at Jungkook, who was not making eye contact with her. Mom, Before he could speak, Ryan interrupted. No, Mom, he wasn't dragging me. Actually, I hurted myself accidentally. so for treating me. He was in hurry. He was worried, Mom. Don't scold him. Jungkook looked at her shocked. What? Where did you got hurt? It's on my back. Don't worry, he already applied ointment there. Mom, I'm tired. I want to rest. Oh right, rest well my child. No need to come down for the dinner. I'll send your boat dinner here. She walked towards Jungkook and caressed his hair. Sorry son for misunderstanding you. Actually, I got worried because I know your anger issues. You get angry so easily. That's why. No, Mom. You don't have to say sorry. Take care of her. He nodded and she left. After closing the door, Wayne looked at him and then walked towards the bathroom. Jungkook sat on the bed, grabbing his hair tightly, cause he knew that he again up this time really bad in his anger. Wayne just reached the door of the bathroom. Her steps slowed down as she felt stinging pain in her stomach. She grabbed her stomach. A low, painful scream left her mouth, and Jungkook looked at her, who was now crunching down on the floor while grabbing her belly. He immediately walked towards her. What happened, Wayne? He asked worriedly while holding her by her shoulders. She didn't say anything. He tried to pick her up, but she held onto his hands and shook her hand. Don't. After a minute, she calmed down. Taking a long breath, she stood up and moved away from him. Don't touch me. And she walked into the bathroom. Why? I'm sorry. After some time, she came and lied down on the couch, totally ignoring Jungkook. He slowly walked to her and slightly tapped on her shoulder, but she remained unbothered. He again tapped. Jungkook, please, let me sleep. I'm tired. He sighed in disappointment and walked inside the bathroom. Jungkook is laying on the bed, tossing here and there. He is not able to sleep. He is just staring at her figure, lying on the couch. He is feeling guilty for his behavior. His anger took over him at that time, when he saw her with that Jake. He was in his thoughts when he heard some low whimpers. He came out of the blanket and looked at Wyan. She was shivering inside the blanket and she is whimpering in pain. Wyan, he turned on the lights and walked to her. He gently shook her. Wyan, what happened? His eyes fall on the blanket, which had some red stains on the lower side. He removed the blanket and his eyes became wide, seeing her white shorts almost red in her blood. Wyan, wake up. This time he shook her vigorously, but she wasn't waking up. He got worried, plus her body was also cold. He sprinkled some water on her face and this time she slowly opened her eyes. Wyan. He got some relief and hugged her tightly while she was still in sleep. Thank God. He hugged her so tightly, almost breaking her bones. Jkff, leave me, she said, pushing him slightly, and he backed away from her. What happened? You... She couldn't speak as sudden cramp hit her and she grabbed her stomach. When? Let's go to hospital. You're bleeding too much. It's not normal. Huh? Then she looked at herself and realized what he is saying. Her sleep fly away in seconds. She looked at him, who was already looking at her. You go from here. Huh? But... Jungkook, at least please turn around. I have to go washroom, she said while rubbing her forehead in frustration. And he sighed. She is still like how she was 2 years ago. He understands that she is feeling embarrassed, so he left from there, saying, I'm coming in a minute. Van came out from the washroom after getting changed. She saw Jungkook sitting on the bed, waiting for her. As soon as he saw her, he walked to her and took her to the bed. How are you feeling? He asked while holding her hand. Fine. Let's go to the doctor. Her eyes widened and she held his hand. Hey, it's midnight and I'm fine. No, you're not. Even if I'm not, why do you care? She raised her voice a little, but the next second hissed in pain, grabbing her belly. Jungkook, please, I don't have energy to fight with you. She stood up from the bed, but he held her hand. Where are you going? Sleep here? And why? Why? He sighed. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for my earlier behavior. Please, don't hurt yourself because of me. She stared at him for some time, then freed her hand from him and laid down on the bed, covering herself. First, take painkillers. I don't take them. Let me sleep. Her voice came out as a whisper. He sighed and laid on the bed beside her. He can feel her moving on the bed continuously to find comfortable position. After debating so much in his mind, he slid his one hand on her waist and pulled her closer to him. Her back hit his hard chest. She gasped at his sudden action. Jungkook, shh. Let me take care of you, like before. I know you're in pain. Let's just forget everything for tonight. He whispered near her ear. His hot breath was fanning over her neck, sending shivers to her spine. You mean like college days? He didn't say anything, just caressing her belly softly to ease her pain. She slowly turned towards him and looked in his eyes. Both were having an intense eye contact in the dim lights of the room. Her eyes falls onto his lips. She slowly leaned in. Her lips touched his. A shiver ran down in their body. Why? He moved away from her. Why? Didn't you say to forget everything? So let's forget everything for tonight. Everything. Please. She again pressed her lips against his, and this time he closed his eyes and kissed her back, cupping her face. He flipped her under him and kissed her passionately. He was craving for her from last 2 years, just like she was craving for him. After breaking the kiss, they both stared at each other for some time before Wine hugged him tightly, hiding her face in his neck. He also wrapped his hands around her. She again felt his warmth, that comfort, her safe place after 2 years. He felt his neck getting wet by her tears. He knows she is crying. He hugged her more tightly and rubbed her back gently. His eyes were also teary, and they both slept in each other's arms after so long, peacefully. Her to many peoples, and now Jungkook is with his friends, but his eyes is only searching for Ryan. Sometimes ago she was here, but now she is nowhere to be seen. He excused himself and walked out from there, looking for her. He searched for her everywhere. Then he came to garden, as he know she likes silent places, so she can be here. He was searching for her. Just then, someone put his hand on his shoulder. He turned around and sighed. Dad? Mr. Kim smiled. Dad, have you seen Ryan? I'm searching for her. Don't worry, she must be here, roaming around in the garden. You come with me. I have something to talk to you. Mr. Kim walked ahead and Jungkook sighed and followed him. He was worried for Ryan, but he didn't want it to disrespect her dad too. I'm sorry, son. Jungkook looked at him in confusion. I'm sorry for keeping her away from you for 2 years, but it was needed. I wanted her to take her responsibilities seriously But Dad, what are you saying? I'm not understanding. Huh? Wine didn't tell you anything? Tell what? Their both attention got diverted when they heard a scream. Jungkook immediately ran towards the direction of the voice, as he knew it was Ryan's voice. Meanwhile, Leave my hand, Jake, she said, glaring at him. But he was still holding her hand like a shameless. From this hand, you slapped me yesterday, right? He sniffed her hand like a psycho and twisted it behind her back. You know, 2 years ago, you get away from me by showing me that gun. But not today. And after I'll be done with you, Jungkook will also leave you. After all, he hates you. Her temperature was increasing, hearing his nonsense. She freed her hand and kicked him on his leg before throwing him on the ground. You know what? I wanted someone to take out my frustration, and you came by your own. And what were you saying? You'll be done with me. Nah, the time I'll be done with you, you'll not be able to even stand. He tried to get up from the ground, but Wyan blocked him before throwing continuous punches on his face. Do you think I left because of you? She scoffed and punches him on his nose, and he groaned loudly. You are living in Delulu till now. I don't give a F about you, and I'll kill you today. Jake somehow grabbed her hands and pushed her off from him. His face was all bruised up and he was feeling dizzy. Wyan was about to grab him again, but before that, someone else held him and punched him hardly that he fainted right there. And he was Jungkook. He signed the guards to take him out and walked towards Wyan, and without saying anything, he embraced her. Here, drink this. He handed her a glass of water, which she took with shivering hands. He looked at her hands before taking the glass from her and made her drink water. Feeling better? She nodded. He removed his jacket before joining her in the bed. He took her in his arms and she rested her head on his chest. Jungkook, he hummed. I want to tell you something. He looked at her. What? 2 years ago, when you got into an accident. Doctor, how is he? She asked the doctor when she saw him coming out. For now, he is fine. But what? The doctor said. There is a lot of internal bleeding caused due to the accident. So he needs immediate surgery. So what are you waiting for? Start the surgery. The thing is, surgery is very complicated and costly. Then she understands what doctor is trying to say. She clenched her fist and asked, how much? The doctor gulped and said. She got quiet for some time, hearing the amount. You start the procedure. I'm coming. We'll pay, but we have a condition. Wyan looked at her, narrowing her eyes. Leave him and be my girlfriend. Wyan looked at them in disbelief and disgust. And you guys call yourself his friend? Really? She scoffed. Think, Wyan. There is no other way. Will you leave him to die? Wyan was feeling like to punch them on their faces, but she doesn't have time. So she just turned to leave, but Jack held her hand. Not so soon, baby girl. Even if you deny it, we will not leave you. We are going to separate you two anyways. Cause my sister wants him and I want you. She looked at him with her red eyes. She yanked his hand and punched him on his face. You. He held his bleeding nose. He marched towards her to grab her hair, but stopped when she pulled out her licensed gun from her waist. Think before doing anything. There is no one around. I'll bury you two here and no one will get to know where to gone. Jake gulped and stepped back, and Vine left from there. Vine is holding her phone in her hands. Her hands are shivering. Never thought I'll call you this soon. But I'm doing it only for Jungkook. She took a deep breath and pressed the caller button, and the person picked up the call. Hello, who is this? She gulped. After 2 years, she is hearing this voice. Dad? Okay, I'll do as you say. But you also have to come back. You have to take over the position of CEO. I'm giving you 1 week to come back.
I won't obey. You cannot tell me what I cannot say. I'm here to last, so yeah, I'm here to stay. I'll live each second like my final day. You can't take that away.
Dad gave me 1 week to return US. Your surgery has to be done in 2 parts, which took 3 days. And the rest 3 days, you were unconscious in the effect of the medicines, as the doctor didn't wanted any movement in your body till your stitches get stable. And at last, I had to leave. She looked at Jungkook, who was looking at her straight. Just his grip was getting tight around her. Jungkook, I know you are mad at me for leaving you, but I couldn't do anything that time. I thought I'll come back after some time, but my dad didn't let me. You could have at least called me one time. You know, when I woke up, I found Jack and Lila beside me, along with my family. And they said that you left me there, alone, or dying. I was not ready to believe them. I searched for you like a crazy person. But he sighed heavily, his eyes filled with tears. At least you could have left a message for me. She cupped his cheeks and wiped his tears. I left a letter for you with the nurse. Didn't you got it? He slowly shook his head in confusion. I didn't get anything. But why didn't you contact me in these 2 years? I wanted to, but Dad said, if you love me, you'll wait for me. And according to me, I left that letter for you. So I was at ease that at least you know where I am. But so that's why you were behaving like that. That's why you were so rude to me. She looked away, blinking her tears before asking him again. Did you really started hating me? Jungkook looked at her. He could feel her body shaking as she was sitting in his lap. He turned her face towards him and her tears rolled down to her cheeks as she looked at him. I waited for you 2 years. Please, don't hate me. He wiped her tears and hugged her tightly as she broke down in his arms. I didn't mean it whenever I said I hate you. I can never hate you, Vine. I was just mad at you. Those two just filled my mind with about you. I broke my friendship with them 2 years ago as I wasn't able to believe them. But your sudden absence made me somehow believe them. She cried, holding him tightly, and he was rubbing her back. Why now? Stop crying now. You are ruining my shirt. She looked at him, wiping her tears and nose. So, are we okay now? He smiled and kissed her forehead. More than okay. He smiled widely, the smile she fell in love with. But suddenly, her expressions fell and her face hardened. Hey, what happened? You, yesterday, how can you? I know you were hurt, but how can you say those things to me? He looked down. He was feeling really ashamed to say all those things to her. Ryan, I'm sorry. I lost it when I saw you with him. I'm not trying to justify my actions, cause they are not justified. I just want you to say that it will not happen again. I promise. You better not break your promise. I will not. By the way, Ryan, that slap was hard. My cheek is still hurting. Really? I'm sorry. She caressed his cheeks. How about you treat it? She noticed the change in his tone and his lips curling into smirk. Here, the pervert mode on. But you love this pervert. Yes, very much. Wine squeezed her eyes a little before opening them. She looked beside her, and there he is sleeping, holding her tightly, close to his heart. Last night, they got to know each other more deeply. Her eyes fall on his neck. There was some dark red marks. She blushed, looking at them. Last night, they were white. She brought her hand closer to his face and traced his face lightly with her finger. She slowly moved towards him and pecked his cheeks and giggled. But her giggling didn't last long when suddenly she was flipped and pinned on the bed. She looked up and his face was just above her. I see, you are taking advantage of me thinking I'm asleep. She just closed her eyes and turned her face other side in embarrassment. As she got caught red-handed, he leaned in and pressed his lips against her. She also kissed him back. She wanted to hold him, so she tried to free her hands, but he held her hands more tightly. And after a morning messy kiss, he pulled away and pecked her forehead, while her whole face was red. He nuzzled his face